Welcome to Heart Over Gold, the channel where love, kindness, and humanity shine brighter than any fortune. In today's story, Hannah Evans thought her life was perfect, until she caught her husband Jack kissing her best friend Charlotte at a gala. Rather than breaking down, Hannah confronted them with evidence and walked away with half of Jack's fortune. As she rebuilt her life, Hannah transformed into the city's most admired woman, while Jack and Jay faced the consequences of their betrayal. This is a story of revenge, empowerment, and a woman's journey to reclaim her worth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest stories. Hannah had always thought her life was perfect. A beautiful home, a successful and handsome husband named Jack, and her childhood best friend Charlotte by her side. But that perfect life came crashing down at an extravagant gala in Orlando. Hannah caught Jack kissing Jay in front of 300 guests. However, instead of making a scene, she confronted them quietly, armed with secret evidence. Hannah returned to the gala, glowing with confidence, and walked away with half of Jack's fortune, becoming the city's most admired woman. Meanwhile, Jack, the traitor, broke down, and Charlotte, the fake lover, begged for forgiveness. But the real story had only just begun. This is a tale of calculated revenge and female empowerment that will have you cheering, crying, and applauding. The alarm buzzed at 6:30 a.m., just like every weekday. Hannah opened her blue eyes slowly, feeling the familiar weight of loneliness pressing on her. The right side of the bed was cold and empty. Jack had left before dawn again, citing urgent business. She stretched, her long blonde hair cascading across the Italian silk pillow like rays of sunlight. At 32, Hannah still had the ethereal beauty that had made her the most admired girl at St. Clair's High in Orlando. Her skin retained its natural glow, and her figure still held the curves that had caught Jack's eye when they first met at the University of Florida. Yet all her external beauty couldn't mask the growing emptiness she felt inside with each passing day. Hannah walked over to the panoramic window in their bedroom, taking in the breathtaking view of the lake. The 800-square-meter mansion in Winter Park was every woman's dream. Mediterranean architecture, lush gardens, and an infinity pool that stretched as far as the eye could see. All funded by Jack's inherited real estate company, which he had expanded through ambition. "Good morning." Mrs. Evans, Carmen, the housekeeper, greeted her, holding a note from Jack. Hannah sighed as she took the note from the kitchen counter. "Important meeting in Miami, back late. Kisses, D. No, I love you. No, have a good day." Just a cold, impersonal note that felt more like business correspondence than a message from a husband. When had they become strangers? Hannah wondered. When had Jack stopped seeing her as the woman he once adored, and started treating her like another expensive item in their home? The phone rang, snapping her from her thoughts. "Hey, gorgeous, what's up this beautiful morning?" Charlotte's cheery voice was laced with an artificial enthusiasm Hannah had started to notice. "Hi, Charlotte. I'm good, thanks. How was your date last night?" Jay hesitated. "Oh, it was interesting. You know how Orlando men are. They all think they're irresistible." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Well, how about we meet this afternoon? It's been a while since we had a proper chat." Hannah glanced at the clock. It was Tuesday, and her schedule was open. That was the irony of her life. She had all the time in the world, yet nothing meaningful to do with it. "Sure, that sounds good. How about at my place? Carmen can make those sandwiches you love." "Perfect. See you at 2 then. And Hannah, thanks for always being there for me. You have no idea how much our friendship means to me." After the call ended, Hannah stood still for a moment, holding her phone. There was something in Charlotte's voice that unsettled her, an intensity she couldn't quite place, but she dismissed the feeling. Jay had always been dramatic. At exactly 2:00 p.m., the electronic gate opened for Charlotte's Honda Civic. Hannah watched as her friend parked beside her own Mercedes-Benz convertible. The contrast between their cars mirrored their lives, while Hannah lived in luxury. Jay shared a small apartment as a marketing manager. Jay stepped out of her car in a floral dress Hannah swore she had seen in a Nordstrom display just days before. "You look stunning." "As always," Jay greeted her as they embraced at the door. Hannah couldn't help but notice Charlotte's new, more sophisticated perfume, a scent that was vaguely familiar, though she couldn't place it. They sat on the veranda where Carmen had laid out a gourmet spread. The gentle October breeze carried the scent of jasmine, creating a peaceful atmosphere. But Hannah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "So, tell me about your mysterious date," Hannah asked, helping herself to a smoked salmon sandwich. Jay hesitated, nervously fiddling with a ring on her finger, one Hannah didn't recognize. "Oh, I met a guy at work. We had dinner. Nothing serious," Jay said. But Hannah noticed a light in her friend's eyes. Charlotte's face lit up with genuine happiness. "He's amazing," Jay continued. "He makes me laugh. He makes me feel special. He's the kind of man any woman would dream of having." Hannah smiled. "That's wonderful. When do I get to meet him?" Jay hesitated. "It's a bit complicated. He's still sorting some things out in his life." Hannah frowned. "Charlotte, I hope you're not involved with a married man." "You know how I feel about that." No, Jay replied too quickly, her words stumbling. "Of course not. I would never." But Hannah saw the unease in her eyes. There was a brief silence, broken only by the sound of the garden fountain. "What about you?" Jay changed the subject. "How's your perfect marriage?" Hannah felt a pang in her chest. How could she admit that her golden marriage felt more like a cage? She'd become so accustomed to the emptiness that she could no longer imagine any other kind of life. "It's fine," she said with a forced smile. "After 8 years together, it's more about comfort than excitement. Comfort or boredom." Jaya sked, her sharpness catching Hannah off guard. For a moment, Hannah considered confiding in Charlotte. About the lonely nights. About how Jack seemed more interested in his work than in her. But something stopped her. Maybe it was pride, or maybe an inkling of intuition, whispering that things weren't as they seemed. "Every marriage has its ups and downs," she said. "What matters is that we love each other and are committed." Jay nodded, but her face bore an odd mix of relief and disappointment. That night, Jack came home at 11:15 p.m., offering the same tired smile and a mechanical kiss on her forehead. His nightly routine. But this time, Hannah noticed the scent of expensive perfume on him, one that wasn't hers. "How was your day, love?" he asked, heading straight for the bathroom without waiting for a reply. "Fine." "Jay came over for lunch," Hannah replied, watching his reaction in the mirror. For an almost imperceptible fraction of a second, Jack stopped unbuttoning his shirt. But it was so quick that she almost thought she imagined it. "Oh, how is she?" "Good. She seems to be dating someone." This time the pause was longer. "Really? That's good for her. I always thought she deserved to find someone special." There was something in his voice that didn't sound completely natural. Hannah lay in bed pretending to read a magazine. But her senses were on high alert. When Jack finally joined her, she pretended to be asleep. She heard him sigh deeply, and then very softly she heard him whisper, "I'm sorry." Hannah squeezed her eyes shut, her heart pounding. Sorry for what? For coming home late? For being distant? Or for something much, much worse? That night she dreamed of unknown perfumes and fake smiles, not knowing that her worst nightmares were about to come true. Comment your thoughts below. Do you think Hannah should have confronted Jack right then and there? The week leading up to the gala was a whirlwind of preparations. Hannah scheduled spa sessions, a final dress fitting, and meetings with her hairdresser and makeup artist. The dress she chose was a work of art, a midnight blue Valentino gown that accentuated her every curve. With it, she would wear the diamonds Jack had given her on their 5th wedding anniversary. A necklace and earrings that had cost more than a luxury car. Jack, meanwhile, was visibly nervous. She attributed it to work stress, but the truth was much darker. He had tried to contact Jay several times, but she was strangely unreachable. Her calls went to voicemail. Her messages went unanswered. She had simply disappeared. On Thursday, just before the gala, Jay finally replied with a laconic text message. "See you Saturday. Don't disappoint me." The coldness of the message made Jack's stomach churn. He knew that when Jay went silent, she was plotting something, and her plans were rarely subtle. On the morning of the gala, Hannah woke up with a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in years. For a few hours, she felt as if she had the husband she had fallen in love with in college. "You look beautiful today," Jack said, looking at her over his newspaper. "In fact, you always look beautiful. I don't think I say that enough." Hannah smiled, her heart quickening. "Thank you. And you? You seem more relaxed. More like the Jack he fell in love with." A shadow passed over his eyes. "Hannah, I need you to know that no matter what happens." "What do you mean, no matter what happens?" Hannah frowned. "Nothing. Sometimes we don't appreciate what we have until we think about losing it." It was the closest to a confession Jack could manage. Part of him wanted to tell her everything, beg for forgiveness, and try to rebuild their marriage on a foundation of honesty. But cowardice won out over courage, as it always did. That evening at the Ritz-Carlton, Hannah and Jack arrived at 7:30 in their silver Mercedes convertible. When Hannah got out of the car, there was a moment of admiring silence among the photographers and guests. She was absolutely stunning and knew it. The midnight blue dress contrasted perfectly with her blonde hair, and the diamonds sparkled like stars on her skin. They entered the main ballroom arm in arm, greeting acquaintances and perfectly playing the part of Orlando's golden couple. For an hour, everything was perfect. They danced, talked, and laughed together as they hadn't in months. Hannah began to believe there might be hope for her marriage. Then she saw Charlotte. Her friend was standing near the bar, and Hannah had to blink twice to make sure it was really her. The bright pink dress was so different from Charlotte's usual style that for a moment Hannah thought she was seeing a stranger. But it was definitely the familiar blonde hair and the green eyes she had known for 15 years. My God, it's Charlotte. She looks wow. She looks amazing. Let's go say hello. Hannah began to walk toward her friend, pulling Jack by the arm. That's when she saw the expression on her husband's face. He had gone visibly pale, and there was something in his eyes she had never seen before. Pure panic. Jack, are you okay? Me? Yes, I'm fine. I just feel a little dizzy. Must have been the champagne. But Hannah wasn't listening anymore because at that moment she saw something that made her blood run cold. Jay wasn't alone at the bar. There was a man with her, and they weren't just talking. His hand was on her waist. He was whispering something in her ear that made her laugh in an intimate, familiar way. It was the kind of interaction Hannah knew well. She had seen Jack act the exact same way with her in the early years of their relationship. But what made her stop completely was when the man turned slightly, allowing her to see his profile. It was Jack, not a man who looked like Jack. It was literally her husband, standing next to her best friend with his hand on her waist, whispering in her ear like a lover. The world stopped. The voices around her became a distant hum. The lights of the crystal chandeliers seemed to tremble above her head. Hannah felt as if she were watching a movie in slow motion. But this was impossible. Jack was right there beside her. She could feel the warmth of his arm through the fabric of his tuxedo. How could he be in two places at once? She looked to her side and saw that he had disappeared. The man she had been holding by the arm seconds earlier simply wasn't there anymore. As she watched, mesmerized by the horror, Jack raised Charlotte's hand to his lips and kissed it delicately. That's when Jack looked up and saw hair. The blood instantly drained from his face. For a moment, that felt like an eternity. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Hannah saw fear, guilt, panic, and something that hurt her more than anything else, relief. Charlotte followed Jack's gaze and saw Hannah too. And to Hannah's absolute horror, her best friend smiled. It wasn't a smile of embarrassment or apology. It was a triumphant smile, as if she had just won a prize she had been competing for years. Hannah didn't remember how her feet carried her to them. She only realized she was standing right in front of the couple when she heard her own voice, strangely calm, cutting through the music and conversations. "Good evening, darling." Charlotte. The silence that followed was deafening. People around them began to notice the tension. "Hannah," Jack began, but the words died in his throat. "What could he say? Can I speak to you both privately?" Hannah said. There was a deadly calm in her voice that made both of them follow her without question. She led them to one of the hotel's private terraces away, and from prying eyes. Her legs moved automatically, as if she were on autopilot while her mind tried to process what she had just discovered. When they reached the terrace with a view of Orlando's twinkling lights, Hannah turned to them. She was beautiful, elegant, composed, and completely shattered inside. "How long?" she said. Her voice cut through the night air like a sharp blade. There were no hysterical accusations, no tears, no drama, just a question that demanded an honest answer. The silence was broken only by the distant sound of music. Jack and Jay stood like statues, each waiting for the other to speak first. I asked, "How long?" Hannah repeated, and this time there was an authority in her voice that neither of them had ever heard before. It was the voice of a woman who had just discovered her strength. Jay was the first to break. Tears she had held back 4 months finally falling. "Hannah, it wasn't supposed to be like this." "Not supposed to be what exactly?" Hannah took a step forward. "Not supposed to get caught, or not supposed to fall in love while betraying my trust." Jack finally found his voice, though it came out shaky. "Hannah, please let me explain. It was a mistake. My weakness. You're my wife. I love you. That's a lie." Hannah's voice exploded. Don't give me that cheap speech, Jack. Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I didn't notice the late nights, the hidden phone calls, the way you barely touch me? Anymore? She turned to Charlotte, who was visibly trembling. And you, my best friend since adolescence, the person I trusted most in the world. How could you? I've always been jealous of you, Jay yelled back. All pretense of repentance gone. Since high school, you always had everything. The beauty, the intelligence, the money, the love of everyone. So, you decided to steal my husband to make yourself feel better. Hannah's voice was low and dangerous. It wasn't just jealousy, Jay continued. The floodgates finally breaking after years of resentment. I really fell in love with him. From the first day I met him, I knew he should be with me, not you. You planned all of it. Jack looked on pale as a ghost. Every casual encounter, every opportunity to be close to him. You never suspected it was strange that I was always available when Hannah wasn't. You used me for 15 years. You used me to get close to him. Hannah's voice was filled with nauseating clarity. And it worked, Jay screamed, her mask finally gone. Because in the end, he chose me. He may be standing here pretending heckeries about you, but for a year, he's been telling me he doesn't love you anymore. Hannah turned slowly to Jack. Is it true? Jack was speechless. How could he explain that his relationship with Jay had started as pure physical desire and transformed into something more complicated, while his love for Hannah had become comfortable and familiar, but without passion? The situation is complicated. Hannah. No, Jack. It's not complicated. It's very simple. Hannah took her phone from her purse and played a recorded audio. Jack's voice echoed on the terrace. Jay is getting very clingy lately. She thinks we're a real couple, that I'll leave Hannah for her. It's pathetic, really. She doesn't understand this is just sex for me. Hannah is my wife, my partner. Jay's just fun. The silence was absolute. Jay swayed as if she had been physically struck. When did you record this? She whispered. Last night during your phone call in the bathroom, Hannah replied coldly. You thought I was sleeping after 8 years of marriage. Did you really think I wouldn't notice you whispering to another woman? Jack was completely speechless. You two deserve each other, Hannah said with a coldness that froze both of them. Two selfish, deceitful, and cowardly people. You think you can destroy me? You think you can humiliate me? She opened her purse and pulled out a folder of documents she had brought, anticipating this exact moment. These are the divorce papers. My lawyers prepared them on Friday after I found out about you both. You will sign this and give me half of everything. The house, the businesses, the bank accounts, everything. And if I don't sign, Jack said. Hannah showed him a series of photos on her phone. Then these photos will be on the front page of the Orlando Sentinel tomorrow morning. Jack Evans, heir to one of Orlando's most respected families, cheating on his wife with her best friend. I wonder what the headlines will say. Jack knew he was cornered. His reputation, his business, his social standing. Everything depended on maintaining a respectable image. Hannah, don't do this. Let's talk. Let's go to couples therapy. Therapy? Hannah lawed. Jack, you slept with my best friend in our beach house last weekend. Do you really think therapy will fix that? I'm going back to that party, Hannah said, fixing her hair and wiping away a solitary tear that had escaped. I'm going to smile. I'm going to talk. I'm going to dance. And you two are going to watch as I show everyone what true class looks like. Hannah, wait. Jack tried to approach her, but she held up a hand. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. Her voice was low, but carried an authority that made him instinctively back away. My lawyers will contact you tomorrow. I hope she was worth it, because she's going to cost you half of everything you own. She started to walk away, but stopped and turned back one last time to Charlotte. And you, Charlotte, after all these years of trying to be me, you finally succeeded. Now you can have my used life, my lying husband, and my pity. Her voice was filled with a profound sadness. Because in the end, you'll find that stealing someone else's life doesn't make you that person. It just makes you a thief. She paused, looking one last time at the two people who had destroyed her life. And Jack, when you realize that Jay never truly loved you, that she only loved the idea of having what was mine, remember that you lost a woman who loved you unconditionally for a woman who loved you conditionally. With those words, Hannah left them alone with the weight of their betrayals and the certainty that they had lost far more than they had gained. When she returned to the ballroom, it was as if a new woman had entered the room. There was something magnetic about her posture, a confidence that radiated from within. Even with her eyes slightly red and some discreetly smudged makeup, she was stunning in a different way, like a woman who had just found herself. Hannah, darling, you disappeared. We were looking for you for the official couple's photo. I apologize. I had to solve an urgent personal matter. Where is Jack? We need you both for the ceremony. Hannah looked directly into the event organizer's eyes. Jack won't be participating in the ceremony tonight. In fact, he won't be participating in anything with me ever again. The statement was made with such tranquility that the organizer needed a few seconds to process it. I don't understand. My marriage ended 10 minutes ago, but that doesn't mean my night has to end. How about we celebrate freedom? With that, Hannah Evans, soon to be Exie, walked back to the center of the ballroom as if she owned the place. On the terrace, Jack tried to console a completely shattered Charlotte, but his own emotions were in total chaos. He had lost his wife, half his fortune, and possibly his reputation. And for what? For a woman who had admitted to being obsessed with him for 15 years, who had manipulated situations to get close to him, who had destroyed a decades-long friendship out of jealousy. "Charlotte, stop crying," he said, his voice lacking any real kindness. "Crying won't change anything." "How can you be so cold?" she sobbed. "You said you loved me." "I said many things," Jack replied, running his hands through his hair. "But now everything has changed. Hannah has evidence of everything. Photos, recordings, documents. She can destroy me financially." For the first time, Jay realized that Jack's attention was focused on his material losses, not on her or their relationship. "And us? What happens to us?" Jack looked at her as if she were a stranger. "Us? Charlotte? You just admitted you've been obsessed with me for 15 years. That you manipulated our friendship to get close to me. Do you think that's a basis for a healthy relationship?" "But you said I said what you wanted to hear to keep sleeping with me," Jack said with a cruelty she had never seen before. "Did you really think I was going to leave my life, my social position, my family for you?" Jay felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "Are you telling me that none of this was real? The sex was real. The convenience was real. But love?" Jack shook his head. "I love Hannah. I always have. You were just a distraction." With those brutal words, Jack left Jay alone on the terrace and went in search of Hannah, desperate to save something. But when he returned to the ballroom, the scene he found left him completely stunned. Hannah was in the center of Theden's floor, surrounded by a group of elite socialites. She was telling a story that made them all laugh, gesturing elegantly with a champagne glass. She was radiant, not faking happiness. She was genuinely glowing. "Where have you been?" "Your wife is the life of the party." One of the city's wealthiest businessmen, Charles called out to him. Jack approached hesitantly, and when Hannah saw him, her smile didn't falter. "Ah, here he is. Jack was just telling everyone about our decision." "What decision?" Charles asked. "We're getting a divorce," Hannah announced cheerfully as if commenting on the weather. "In fact, we just finalized everything a few minutes ago." The group fell silent for a moment, shocked, before exploding with simultaneous questions. "But you seemed so happy. What happened?" Hannah raised her hand delicately, silencing them all. "Please don't worry about us. Sometimes people just grow in different directions. The important thing is that we realized it before it became truly unpleasant." She looked directly at Jack. "Isn't that right, darling?" Jack was paralyzed. Hannah had turned the most humiliating revelation of his life into a casual social conversation. "Yes," he managed to stammer. "And best of all," Hannah continued, "I am now officially single and eligible again." Just imagine a 32-year-old financially independent woman with zero emotional baggage and no tolerance for lies. "I'm practically a unicorn." The group erupted in laughter, and Hannah instantly became the center of attention in a way she never had as Jack's wife. As his wife, she was respected, admired, but always seen as an extension of him. Now on her own, she was magnetic. "Hannah," Jack tried, "can we talk privately?" "I don't think it's necessary," she replied gently but firmly. "We've said everything we needed to say. Now, if you'll excuse me, I promised Charles a dance." Charles, a wealthy widower who had been discreetly interested in Hannah for months, offered his arm immediately. It would be an honor. As they headed to the dance floor, Jack stood watching, realizing he had lost far more than a wife. He had lost an extraordinary woman whom he had never truly appreciated. On the dance floor, Charles held her respectfully as they danced to a soft waltz. "Are you sure you're okay?" Asked quietly. "I know you're being brave, but this must be difficult." Hannah looked him in the eyes, and he saw an honesty that surprised him. "You know, Charles, I should be devastated. I should be crying, screaming, making a scene. But I feel free for the first time in years. I feel completely free. Free from what? From pretending I was happy in a marriage that died 2 years ago. From pretending I didn't notice my husband was treating me like an accessory. From pretending that having everything money can buy is enough when you don't have honesty, respect, or true love." Charles twirled her gently, admiring her grace. "And now Now I can discover who I am when I'm not trying to be anyone's perfect wife. I can travel, study, work if I want to. I can have relationships based on choice, not obligation. Are you leaving Orlando? Maybe. Or maybe I'll stay and build a completely new life here. I haven't decided yet, but tone thing I know, I won't accept crumbs of affection from anyone anymore. When the music ended, Charles respectfully kissed her hand. If you decide to stay, I hope you'll give me the opportunity to get to know the real Hannah, not Jack Evans's wife. It would be a pleasure, she replied, and for the first time, she realized she was flirting not out of politeness or habit, but because she genuinely wanted to. The rest of the night passed like a dream. Hannah danced with several men, talked with women she had only known superficially for years, and discovered that when she wasn't playing the role of a submissive wife, she was naturally charismatic and interesting. Jack remained on the periphery of the party, watching his ex-wife shine in a way she never had with him. Jihad disappeared completely, probably after realizing her fantasy had turned into a nightmare. Around midnight, as the party was ending, Hannah found herself on the main hotel staircase, saying goodbye to the friends she had made that night. Many expressed their support and invited her to future dinners and events. Jack approached her one last time when she was alone. Hannah. She turned to him, and there was no anger in her eyes, only a serene sadness that was somehow worse than any fury. What do you want, Jack? Forgiveness, he said simply. I know I don't deserve it. I know I messed everything up, but I love you. I always have. Hannah studied him for a long moment. Do you know what the saddest part of all this is? It's that I believe you. I believe you love me in the way you are capable of loving someone. But your love has always been selfish, Jack. You loved me as a possession, not as a person. And I deserve to be loved as a person. She gently touched his face, a final gesture of tenderness. I can change, he said. No, you can't. And more importantly, I don't want you to change anymore. I want you to be exactly who you are so that other women can clearly see what they are choosing. Hannah smiled sadly. Goodbye, Jack. I hope you find happiness, but it won't be with me. With that, she descended the stairs, got into her car, and drove home for the last time as Jack Evans's wife. The next day, the social pages would be filled with photos from the gala. But the photos that would get the most attention wouldn't be of the golden couple. They would be of Hannah, radiant and dancing with a freedom everyone recognized, but few could name. It was the freedom of a woman who had chosen truth over convenience, dignity over security, and herself above all others. 6 months after the night that changed everything, Hannah was sitting in her lawyer's office, signing the final papers that would make her freedom official. The process was surprisingly quick. Jack didn't contest any of her demands, probably because he knew she had enough evidence to destroy him publicly if he tried. Congratulations, Hannah, her lawyer said, extending her hand. You are officially a free and very wealthy woman. Hannah smiled, signing her name. The mansion, half of Jack's companies, and a sum of money that would secure her financial independence for several lifetimes. What are your plans now? Her lawyer asked. Hannah looked out the window. I'm still deciding. For the first time in years, the future is a blank page. It's both terrifying and exciting at the same time. And it was true. The last 6 months had been a period of intense discovery. Without the obligations of being a wife, she had started exploring who she really was. She enrolled in a psychology course, something she had always wanted to do, but never had the courage. She traveled alone for the first time in her life. She went to Paris, Rome, Barcelona, places she had visited as a luxury tourist, but now explored as an independent woman. She went to therapy and learned to distinguish between being kind and being subservient. And she met people, interesting men, inspiring women, and genuine friendships based on mutual interests. What are your thoughts on a divorce that leads to a new and better life? Is it a defeat or a victory? Share your opinion in the comments. When she left the law office, Hannah decided to do something she had never done before. Walk aimlessly through the streets of Orlando. As she strolled down Park Avenue, she saw a man named Leo, whom she had met 2 months earlier at an art exhibition. He was a landscape architect, divorced with an 8-year-old daughter. Unlike Jack, who commanded attention wherever he went, Leo had a softer but infinitely more genuine presence. Hannah. He looked up from his laptop, a genuine smile lighting up his face. Leo, what a pleasant surprise to see you here. I was just passing by and saw you. How was it at the law office? You mentioned you had some documents to sign today. The fact that he remembered such a small detail from a casual conversation touched her deeply. Jack rarely remembered her important appointments, let alone trivial details. Officially divorced, she said, as free as a bird. Leo stood up and spontaneously hugged her. Congratulations. I know it wasn't easy to get here. Thank you. I actually feel relieved, as if a weight I didn't even know I was carrying has been lifted. How about we celebrate? I know an incredible place for dinner. Hannah hesitated for a moment, not because she didn't want to, but because she was still learning to trust her instincts when it came to men. Only if it's nothing too sophisticated, she said finally. I'm a little tired of places where you need a 2-week reservation. Leo laughed. How about an authentic taco food truck? I know. Plastic tables, canned beer, and live music from local artists. Perfect. They walked through the streets of Orlando together, talking about everything and nothing. Leo talked about a project he was working on, transforming an empty downtown lot into a community garden. Hannah talked about her psychology classes and how fascinated she was by the complexity of the human mind. Do you have anything planned for the weekend? Leo asked. Actually, I have a date, Hannah said and laughed at his slightly disappointed expression. Oh, with me? The one and only. She smiled. I'm going to the movies alone for the first time in my life. What movie? Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It's a French film about 2 women in the 18th century. I saw it last week. It's extraordinary. Leo was full of surprises. As the evening progressed, Hannah discovered layers of complexity in Leo that intrigued and attracted her. He was a voracious reader, a home cook, and had talked about his daughter with a genuine love that warmed her heart. And you? He asked. Do you want to have children? I used to think so, she said honestly. But now I don't know. I think I need to discover who I am as an individual before I become responsible for raising another person. His emotional maturity impressed her. This was a conversation she could never have had with Jack, who saw children as an extension of his own personal brand. When the night ended, Leo walked her to her car. He didn't try to kiss her or make a move. He just gently held her hand for a moment and said, Hannah, I would really like to get to know you better, but I want you to know that I'm in no hurry. You just got out of a long marriage. You're discovering who you are now. If you need time and space, I completely understand. His consideration almost made her cry. I would really like to get to know you better too, she replied. And you're right about me needing time, but time doesn't necessarily mean being alone. It means doing things at my own pace. At your own pace, he agreed, smiling. As she drove home that night, Hannah reflected on the changes in her life. 6 months ago, her biggest worry was choosing the right dress for a social event. Now, she was considering going back to school for a master's degree in psychology, planning a solo trip to Asia, and opening a clinic to help women who had experienced emotional betrayal. And there was Leo, not as a savior or a replacement for Jack, but as an interesting possibility for human connection based on mutual respect and genuine interest. Months later, when she graduated with honors from her psychology course, Leo was in the audience applauding along with the few true friends she had made. They had been officially dating for 6 weeks, a slow, respectful courtship built on long conversations, shared activities, and an emotional intimacy that grew naturally. 6 months after that, when Hannah opened her clinic specializing in therapy for women who had suffered betrayal, Leo helped design the therapeutic garden behind the building. And 2 years after the night that changed everything, when Hannah and Leo married in a small, intimate ceremony in the clinic's own garden, she felt something she had never experienced in her first marriage. Completeness without dependence, love without possessiveness, and a true partnership based on a daily choice, not social obligation. The ceremony was simple but perfect. Hannah wore a simple white dress she had chosen because she liked it, not because it would impress guests. The vows they exchanged were written by themselves, genuine words about companionship, mutual growth, and a love that makes space for individuality. I promise you, Hannah said, looking into Leo's brown eyes, that I will love you for who you are, not for what you can give me. I promise to grow by your side, not in your shadow. And I promise that our relationship will always be based on truth, even when the truth is difficult. I promise you, Leo replied, that I will support you in all your dreams, even Theoni's I don't fully understand. I promise that you will always be my partner, never my trophy. And I promise that our love will always be a conscious choice, never a habit. When they kissed, sealing their vows, Hannah felt as if she was kissing her true future for the first time. In the small but warm audience were the true friends she had made over the last few years. There were no social photographers or guest lists based on political or financial importance. There were only people who genuinely cared about Hannah and Leo's happiness. During the simple party that followed, a barbecue in the garden, music played by Leo's friend, Hannah had a moment of deep reflection. She thought of Jack, who had made a pathetic attempt at reconciliation a few months after their divorce, when he realized that Charlotte was exactly what Hannah had predicted, an obsessed woman who suffocated him with her constant emotional demands. Their relationship had lasted exactly 3 months after the night of the revelation. She thought of Charlotte, who had tried to contact her several times over the years, sending desperate messages begging for forgiveness, explaining that she had realized Jack had never truly loved her, and that she had destroyed the only true friendship she had ever had for a man who wasn't worth Hannah's old shoes. Hannah never responded, not out of cruelty, but because she had understood a fundamental truth about forgiveness. Some betrayals are scars that never fully heal. And that's okay. Not every wound needs to be forgiven for us to move on. Sometimes the greatest peace of mind comes from simply accepting that some people don't deserve access to our emotional lives. She thought of her journey from a woman who defined her worth through the eyes of others, to a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she was worth. From someone who accepted crumbs of affection to someone who demanded genuine love or preferred to be alone. "What are you thinking about?" Leo approached, offering her a glass of champagne. "How the worst night of my life ended up being the beginning of the best phase of my life," she replied, accepting the glass and looking around the garden filled with people who loved her for who she was, not for what she represented. "Do you regret anything?" Leo asked carefully. "I regret taking so long to value myself, but I don't regret the journey because without it, I would never have gotten here." Leo gently kissed her forehead. "For a psychologist, you have very profound insights." She laughed. "For a landscape architect, you ask very provocative questions." And there, surrounded by genuine love in a garden that symbolized growth and renewal, Hannah knew she had finally found what she had been looking for her whole life without knowing it. Herself. 2 years after the wedding, when she received her master's degree in psychology, specializing in therapy for survivors of emotional betrayal. Her first patient was a young blonde woman with blue eyes who reminded her of herself years ago. Beautiful on the outside, but shattered inside by the betrayal of the person she loved most. "Dr. Evans," the young woman said at her first session, tears streaming down her face. "Everyone says I should forgive and move on, but I can't. It's normal." Hannah smiled with understanding, seeing echoes of her own journey in the woman's pain. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or going back," she said gently. "Forgiveness means releasing the pain so it no longer controls your life, and only you can decide when and how to do that. My job here is to help you discover who you are beyond the pain." And so Hannah turned her greatest wound into her greatest strength, helping other women find their way back to themselves, just as she had. The traitor had cried in desperation. The lover had begged for forgiveness. But the wife had become a woman who no longer needed anyone's validation to know her own worth. And that in the end was the sweetest victory of all.